5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is Deducter bringing you set 5 of KT vs STX State 3 Pro League Playoffs. We have a rematch again of the Day 1 match. Stats versus BoGus here. Stats is the Protoss at 12 o'clock, the yellow Protoss, and BoGus is the brown Zerg at the 3 o'clock. This is the map Icarus. This is a rematch again of Day 1, although that was match 1, I believe. And Stats not doing so well thus far in the Pro League Playoffs. He lost the only match of KT on Day 1, and Day 2 he also lost. Admittedly, that was an extremely close game that I cannot really fault Stats for. I thought he fought brilliantly with what he had. It was actually a very good game, so I'm not going to blame him for that. Nevertheless, he did lose twice in a row, so he surely wants to redeem himself today. If he wins here, KT will defeat STX 4-1 again, a repeat of Day 1. Looks like history is cyclical. Perhaps, we shall see. And surely he will be a hero for his team, and nobody's going to care about his losses early on. If, on the other hand, STX somehow manages to win this series, and they would have to win every single one of the remaining games, including the ace match, well, people might more blame the ace player. Nevertheless, those two girls are quite cute there, but one of them looks like she is toying on her iPhone or something like that. Anyway, again, this is Stats' chance to redeem himself. He surely wants to redeem himself. And if he can win here again, he will have. On the other hand, if he loses here, going down 0-3 in a row in the Pro League Playoffs is not a good sign for any player. And Stats' reputation will certainly have taken a serious blow. I may not be able to include him as among the better Protosses around. He would be dumped into the more mediocre category regardless of his win ratio, with the likes of your Bridges, aka Tysons, or your Movies. Yeah, Movie, I mean, yes, he got to the final, but what has he done since? He's not very good at anything. I can't remember what he's notable for. He just squeaked to the final somehow, and it was Flash's time. Occasionally, he's played some okay StarCraft since then, even some good ones, but, you know, just like Stats here. Stats has never made it far into the Star League either. So really, you know, but this was permanently a blow. Right now, I would say Stats is probably like your Cal or your Free, not quite your Jangbis or your Storks. Jangbi playing very well again recently. So, you know, being with, like, Cal or Free, that's not so bad, but you don't want to be lumped down there with your Bridges or your, what's another your Protoss? I'll think of one soon enough. I'll think of one. Jaehoon, that's the best example. Jaehoon is the definition of your mediocre Protoss right there. On occasion, he can play out of his mind, but 90% of the time, he just rolls over. It does appear that, while I was talking there this time, BoGus is going to scout in the wrong direction. He also has gone for Rax in the Command Center build, fairly typical here, so luck is working out a bit on Stats' side. He should be able to get the Dragoon out, perhaps even to block his ramp, which would be nice. Or at least kill the SEV in short order. Yes, he is going to be able to get Dragoon out to block his ramp. So that is something. Luck certainly breaking his way here. Stats is going to push out with his Dragoon. I always don't know whether this is the right move for Protoss. I mean, pro gamers surely know better than I do. He wants to put on some early pressure, but I always feel, wouldn't it be better knowing that you weren't scouted early on, knowing the typical Terran scouting timer, to put your Dragoon on the ramp and try to kill the scout? That seems so much more useful to me. I mean, what's this Dragoon going to be able to do here? Snipe a bit away at these Marines? That Marine's going to be able to survive and get into the bunker there. And the Dragoon trying to pick off this SEV, not able to. If it were back at its base, it could surely have killed that SEV. I guess the other important difference is, of course, Stats is not actually scouted, so perhaps he just wants to scout. That's another mistake. Stats should just send his probe out to do that, keep his Dragoon back. Anyway, perhaps Stats does know better than me, and I am clueless here, as probably the best explanation for this. Robotics facility going out for Stats, so he may very well be going for a Reaver type game. That could work out quite well. Reaver drops. Again, Terran players these days not quite used to defending Reaver drops too much anymore. It's not that difficult. People have gotten very good at their turret placement, nevertheless, because it is unusual these days. I think it definitely stands a chance of working, and it could work quite well. There is always an element of luck involved with your Reaver harass, especially with regards to your opponent. Stats going to put on some pressure at the front here. I mean, some opponents are just going to be able to see the Shadow at the appropriate time and withdraw their SCVs at the appropriate time. There's also the Scarab Dudding issue. I mean, there is certainly quite a bit of luck involved, but if luck breaks on the side of Stats, it would be absolutely devastating. Observatory going down first. So he just wants to get observers out and scout. That also makes a lot of sense considering he didn't get early scouting. He doesn't know too much about what's going on. I mean, looks like these Dragoons going in there to snipe a Marine. Probably not the best use, but who am I to say? These Dragoons going to put on quite a bit of pressure on the front. 5 SCVs forced to pull off the line just to deal with these Dragoons. I mean, darting the Dragoons in to snipe a tank is usually works out very well. That tank on the high ground should be able to ward away these Dragoons. Dragoons are going to continue to fire until Siege Mode comes out, probably, since they do outrange the tank here against this bunker. So Citadel going down here for Stats. Perhaps he's going for a Dark Templar drop. That could also work. The Dragoon finally going to be forced back here, not really causing too much damage. Starport going down, perhaps a counter attack. Well, it wouldn't be a counter attack; it would be a drop coming in here from BoGus potentially. Stats with a decent number of Dragoons out on the field. He's going to set up his third base. I'm not sure where that is actually the best location. Actually, no, that's probably a pretty good location since any sort of potential incoming Terran attack can easily be reinforced if there's a drop. And basically, well, he can't get his natural blocked off, but it doesn't matter where else he expands on the map. He wouldn't be able to save his expansions if he got his natural blocked off regardless, so that's actually a very good location, and the standard location, as it should be. Anyway, there is a nice little blockade there, and Arbiter is potentially coming out for Stats. Here or maybe he wants to go for the strategy employed by Shadow in Game 2 of this day's series. So that could be something. Maybe he saw Shadow, hey, cool, Corsairs, man. Well, Shadow was incompetent, and he was definitely a mediocre Protoss. But I'm Stats, I can be better than that, and I want to use Disruption Webs, although that is almost certainly not going to be the case. But wouldn't that be amusing? It would certainly be amusing. I think if Stats goes out that way, I wouldn't blame him. It would be entertaining, and KT can always win at the end. And Stats suiciding one of his Dragoons in the mines there. He has an observatory. I don't know why he was so impatient. He should just wait for his observers to come out. Arbiter coming out from Stats here quite quickly. This is on 2 bases. Stats is only positioning himself to set up the third. He hasn't actually set up the Nexus there yet. So Stats really wants to go for some sort of recall, it looks like. He has the Observer in the main, seeing the tank count. And this dropship going to come here, going to spot these Dragoons. Some Vultures being laid off here. The Dragoons not able to cope, apparently. Not even able to cope with the dropship. I mean, neither side really choosing to engage. And this Shadow with 2 Dragoons is a curiosity. I guess he's really terrified of a tank drop on his ledge. And that's why he's positioned 2 Dragoons up there. Not necessarily a bad maneuver, certainly a valid concern, but I don't know. I guess that is actually a pretty good insurance move. I often blame players for not insuring themselves by putting, for instance, 2 cannons to ward off Vulture Harass. So this would be something similar, and I would have to applaud him for this, as long as he has the presence of mind to recall those Dragoons as necessary. He has finally put down his third Nexus there, and Stats is getting his first Arbiter out, it looks like. So neither player really trying to do anything to the other. BoGus is scouting about a bit with his Vultures. Not going to see too much, going to lay some mines here and there. His dropship is mostly rendered useless now. There are quite a few Observers out here for Stats, that's good, he should use them. What happened to the Observer in the main here? He may have lost it, although I doubt it. I think he recalled it. I don't think those turrets took it out, and there don't appear to be any Goliaths to deal with it, so that's kind of silly to recall. Oh, no, I see the Observer. Never mind, it is in the base. Never mind, I see on the mini-map now. It's just moved a tad more to the right there, the eastern side of the map. Anyway, BoGus is feeling confident here, confident enough to push out a bit and try to get his third base up. He's got a good number of tanks and vultures here in the front, and Stats is going to be unable to assault this without Zealots with speed and, of course, some sort of spellcasting unit. Some sort of spellcasting unit that is not Corsairs, I feel. These Dragoons are going to clear out some lines here and there. And BoGus, I think, is in a pretty comfortable position. Stats has actually delayed his third expansion quite a bit compared with how commonly Protoss has been, how quickly, I should say, Protoss has been putting down that third expansion. Stats will have early Arbiters out. If he can pull off a good recall or good stasis, things may yet be very different. I think Stats should be very wary of pulling off a recall when he doesn't have too many forces, since he can ill afford the loss of his initial army in a bad recall attempt here. Good stasis, on the other hand, always very useful. These Dragoons almost as if they sensed the mine and backed up there. Cleverly, a vulture hidden behind that map artifact here at the 11 o'clock. If Stats wants to go for an expansion there, it looks like he is. That vulture would be able to snipe the probe. Nicely done by BoGus. On the other hand, another way for him to lose the probe is just to lose it to this vulture out in the front. But this is just going to irritate Stats more and more, since the second probe he's sending will get sniped by the hidden vulture. BoGus playing decently while he is researching EMP. It looks like he is putting down his turrets to deal with the Arbiter that may be incoming. Again, I think Stats would be best off expanding again, trying to macro up like a fiend, like your best. And he actually has managed to put down the expansion. Maybe the Vulture is going to wait until Stats blocks off the entrance with pylons and transfers over a whole bunch of probes and then begin its rampage. That could be quite clever. A very hidden trap there. I like that. Cannon going down here for Stats to defend his base at the 1 o'clock. Good move. Stats does not appear to have too big of an army out. He has 2 armies in the map, but probably not close to being maxed just yet. This has more or less played out like No Rush 15. Very few engagements by both players, so the battle will be decisive. Once the 2 armies clash here, these Dragoons will come out and deal with that Vulture there. The EMP is going to try to chase, or the Science Vessel with the EMP is going to try to chase down this Arbiter. That EMP looks like gonna miss, so not the best move by BoGus. This may be the opportunity here for Stats to attack. BoGus is going to distract Stats, it looks like, with some Vultures here outside of his natural, and that Science Vessel going down, not the best maneuver by BoGus. Surely he wanted to at least save his Science Vessel when the EMP failed to land. But again, I don't think it should bother BoGus too much here. He does have a very strong ground army. Probably should get a few Goliaths just to help with killing your observers and your shuttles and your, especially the shuttle and the Arbiter. That is quite important. You do not want to get a Zealot bomb in the midst of all those tanks there. Surely, before he moves out, BoGus will mixing a few. And what is he doing? Attacking his own tank in a moment of missed micro there. Ugh. Kind of silly by BoGus. Perhaps his concentration is slipping. This is a very high-pressure match. I mean, if he loses, STX will be out of the Pro League Playoffs, so there is a lot of pressure here on BoGus. Perhaps he is just not quite able to cope here. We shall see, though. The decisive battle may soon be approaching. It is the 13:30-minute mark. Not quite 15 minutes. No Rush 15 is going to be up very soon. Stats has managed to mass up 3 Arbiters, 2 Shuttles, and this particular Science Vessel is out again, and that's exactly what BoGus has done with the Vulture. Cute maneuver. Unfortunately, there are Dragoons stationed there and gonna clean up the Vulture. It only gets 1 kill, rather sadly, I have to say. More Vultures gonna stream about the map, perhaps trying to do some more harass. That is a lot of Vultures, and Stats seems like he's sent off 2 armies just to chase after these Vultures. I don't know, this may be a good opportunity for BoGus to strike. Okay, Stats has only sent 1 of his armies to deal with it. He's grouped up every last one of his units that he has left. Looks like in the middle, that's good. But this is a very potent defensive location here for BoGus. He's well entrenched That Silence Vessel needs to be careful. Variable Fortress, if you would. Any sort of direct frontal assault by the Protoss would almost certainly fail and suffer horrendous casualties. I guess one thing that BoGus actually doesn't have going for him... Oh, okay, I was just going to say his defense wasn't very deep, but seeing that massive second force of tanks, I think BoGus will have that covered. It's just that some of his tanks were positioned right next to the space cliff, if you would. There was nothing behind them. Generally, not good to back yourself up against the wall, I feel, because you could use a more tank stagger to the back. Anyway, these tanks are going to push out absolutely massive army. Decent EMP on these tanks in the front. That may not actually work out. And the second EMP going to catch one of the Arbiters. Another Stasis here, catching only a few tanks and a Vulture. Some Storms. Those Storms, some Storms are good. Other Storms seem less good. Massive attack here by Stats. I'm not sure whether it's going to be a breakthrough. That Shuttle getting picked off by something, and Stats actually in some trouble here. His Stasis not working out for him. BoGus is going to take the battle quite convincingly. So, Stats, he has gotten himself up to 5 bases. He still has Arbiter, 2 Arbiters, I believe, left. This is his opportunity to re-macro up his army. Again, not always the best move to stasis the tanks in the front, since it blocks your army from attacking units in the back and losing Arbiter there. He has 2 left and a Shuttle. There are Goliaths out there, so BoGus may in fact be able to win this game, and Stats might go down 3-0. Nice little Zealot bomb there. Shuttle and this puny Protoss army just not going to be able to cope. His macro is... This is no Best, I have to say. Best would have 2 more armies out by now. He never attacks until he's confident that he can rebuild every single one of his units in about 30 seconds, it looks like. Whereas BoGus has managed to get himself... he's almost going to cut off Stats here, the rest of his bases from the natural good EMPs there. And now Stats is in serious trouble, it looks like. He's trying to attack. This is going to be an absolute disaster. His forces are forced to attack in a very narrow corridor. He's backing up. EMP all over those Templar. Oh, this is all... Surely GG for Stats. The Stats gonna go down as a mediocre Protoss, I have to say, losing 0-3 in the Pro League Playoffs. Not looking good for him. And BoGus doing well here, I have to say, overcoming the high pressure on his team. And Stats, just absolute disaster. He's only able to rally a few units out to deal with what looks like 20 tanks sieged up outside of his natural. There is a solitary Shuttle there and 2 Arbiters. Those are the only units left fighting. The Shuttle not able to fight, but doesn't appear to have anything to be able to drop with either. The Arbiters, in fact, are going to be able to do what damage they can to the tanks. Not that it matters. BoGus looking quite confident there. Stats. Oh, Stats. Poor Stats. I'm sure he's not too happy with himself. I don't know, man. Going down 0-3. Pro League Playoffs. Bad sign. Stats may yet be able to come back. Even if he loses his natural. He would be what? Oh, but he's going to lose another base there. The base at the 1 o'clock. He'll be down to 3 bases, of which only 2 are probably mining, up against 3 mining bases of BoGus. That'll be GG. Stats is trying to make one desperate attack here. Good Storm. Nice Zealots there. He looks like he will finally be able to break through this blockade. So Stats should probably pick the Templar up into his Shuttle, but I think he's suffered too many losses. He is going to lose the base there at the 1 o'clock. Not able to save that. BoGus is bringing out reinforcements to deal with this. These probes not going to do anything to the tanks. Going to suffer horrible losses, it looks like. And Stats able to stave off defeat for now, but I think BoGus has done all the damage he wanted to. I'm not sure whether Stats even really has the units left to try to deal with what potential attack BoGus has stored here. He is bringing up more units. He has more Vultures around the map. And if BoGus makes a concerted push at one of the other expansions, I don't think Stats will be able to hold it off here. Stats is fighting well. He does still have the Arbiter, so perhaps this is not going to be GG. Perhaps Stats may yet salvage himself, although if he loses Templar to Vultures like that, he will not salvage himself. I still don't think Stats' chances are very high here. Stats' chances. Interesting expression. Anyway, those probes there need to go start mining, but they can't really because the Nexus is still building. Stats with a tiny, tiny army left in the middle of the map. BoGus with red all of the map, it looks like. Stats, he does have his base at the 9 o'clock with more gateways there. He also has some ground upgrades, it looks like, and a good number of more Zealots built up with a shuttle and some Arbiters. Things may yet be able to work out for him if he protects his Templar, perhaps loads them into the shuttle and storms really well and uses nice spells here. He may yet be able to overcome his problems in this game. He has managed to macro up OK army at this point, but BoGus too, with a nice line of tanks in the middle and a secondary army that he is building just outside his natural, he should be fine. BoGus can just make one more concerted attack somewhere, I think the stats will likely be broken. I don't know why BoGus is delaying his attack for so long. This is actually giving Stats a chance to rebuild. He's actually reestablished his base there, it looks like, at the 1 o'clock, and BoGus gonna sneak some vultures over here to harass Stats. Stats does not look like he has units to spare to deal with these vultures, so they can actually do some serious damage. Perhaps a recall here coming out from Stats. BoGus has a few units here to deal with it, but if Stats recalls on top of these mines, it will also be GG. He cannot afford to lose these units, and those mines are going to run into his units. It wasn't that bad. He took some damage, but decent recall here, I have to say. This is going to force BoGus' lift. BoGus will almost certainly counterattack with every unit he has left. Those mines getting dragged into the SCVs is exactly the maneuver that Stats needed to come back. BoGus, he's not responding. He doesn't look like he's sending units to try to save this base, nor is he counterattacking. BoGus has frozen. Okay, he has sent some units to try to save this base. Good storm there on the cliff. Very nicely done, I have to say. Going to take out the tank, which is really the offensive force there. Stats trying to counterattack here in the middle. He would probably be wise to back his Dragoons up here and try to lure in more forces, because every unit BoGus commits to that high ground there is a unit he won't have in the middle of the map for Stats when Stats wants to make the attack. But Stats looks like he may yet be in some trouble. These good storms, all of those tanks, that is what Stats was doing. A nice little lure with the storm, and these tanks severely weakened here. Stats trying to clear out some more mines in the middle. Even though BoGus managed to clear out this particular recall, he has suffered some grave casualties in the interim. Stats has been happily mining, it looks like, off 4 bases. He's built a base there at the 10 o'clock for some time now, whereas BoGus is only down to 2. Although he should be able to reestablish the main at the 6 o'clock there. That is something. Another recall perhaps incoming, but going to get shut down by the science vessel. So at this point, I would say Stats has made a full recovery. BoGus, I thought he was going to win there in his push, and he just did not quite seize the opportunity. If he had sent a few vultures or a few tanks there to the 11 o'clock while he was attacking the National and the 1 o'clock, he would have been fine. Flash is famous for being able to pin down an army at one location and attack everywhere else with just the right amount of units to deal with it. But this is no Flash, unfortunately. So BoGus, most Terrans can't do what Flash does anyway, so I can't really blame BoGus for this. On the other hand, I still felt that he was in a very good position. And perhaps he has not really squandered the game, but things are certainly not looking too bad for Stats anymore. I would say the game has more or less evened up. BoGus has managed to land quite a few good EMPs on those Arbiters, so certainly that could help him out a lot. In a decisive battle, perhaps there will not be enough stasis to matter. BoGus would be wise, though, to try to perhaps drop somewhere and distract Stats or something. He is not going to try to do that. These Templar are going to get loaded up into the shuttle. Very nice. That will protect them from EMP and strange siege tank fire. As long as Stats is paying attention and microing the shuttle, he should be fine. Don't want to suicide the shuttle into Goliaths, of course. Stats is moving up forces. He's got 3 Arbiters, I think only one of which probably has energy. BoGus is trying to build a base here at the 7 o'clock. Stats cannot allow that to happen. So, Stats, I still don't think attacking straight up is the correct decision here. That is a nice defense, and Stats is going to go for a recall. This could work out quite well. Not sure whether he needs to recall so many units here. Nice EMP, by the way, by BoGus. So many units to deal with one expansion that hasn't even been put down. This maneuver may, in fact, be very, very bad for Stats because he's got them part of his army trapped there. In a fairly narrow corridor, might I add, and no chance to flank or anything like that. And on the other hand, this depends on what BoGus is going to do. I think BoGus would be wise to send a few units to try to pin that Protoss army down, but it looks like Stats might be opting for an attack. BoGus is sending some units to pin that down. In the meantime, Stats is launching a massive attack here at the middle. It looks like hopefully BoGus hasn't sent too many units, and Stats backing off. I mean, this is his opportunity to attack in the middle when BoGus has sent quite a few units, it looks like, just to deal with this Protoss force. This is his opportunity to break through in the front when BoGus is distracted. I mean, BoGus, if he sent like 3 or 4 tanks and half a dozen vultures, things may work out great, but Stats going to launch an attack in the middle, perhaps. BoGus has sent so many units over, they are clogging this entire expressway, I have to say. Stats stasising the odd 2 tanks in the front. Now he's going to assault. Now, those tanks have nothing protecting them. If Stats had his Zealots all up in front, which he's trying to do, missing a storm there. Both players not playing the best. So many EMPs going off on those sides of us. A veritable storm of EMP missiles. This is going to drive Stats back. Those EMPs probably critical, and Stats in dire straits here. BoGus has recalled all the units, it looks like, sent to pin down Stats' army there to deal with this, and Stats has lost his entire army. Bad storms, a relatively bad attack. He's going to lose his Arbiter. No, that Arbiter survives, but he's got nothing to deal with these vultures. And Stats are really, I don't know, both players not quite playing the best, but BoGus ultimately realizing where his priorities are. I think what would have been wise for BoGus to do is send like 5 tanks and maybe a dozen vultures, lay some mines, and just hold out there. This Arbiter is going to go down to turrets, whereas Stats would, once he saw that BoGus has sent, looks like a third of his army over there, he probably should have attacked at the east and tried to break through to the natural. Surely BoGus has few units there, and he would have had few defenses, probably. It would have been a worthy gambit. Even if he lost, I would have been fine with it. As it stands, Stats not with the best attack. Poor spellcasting, stasising 2 tanks at the front. Now he's doing good storms. A little too late. Where was his shuttle with the Templar when he attacked in the front? BoGus is going to, looks like, be able to destroy this base here at the 9 o'clock, it looks like. He has enough units to get it done. He's also sent vultures to harass the 11 o'clock, and there wasn't much that Stats could do about it, it appears. So Stats rallying what forces he can, going to stasis these Goliaths, and then perhaps drop over these tanks. Going to be able to clear up this force of BoGus here. And looks like Stats has survived for now. BoGus, I don't know what his army looks like. Okay, BoGus does have a pretty nice army, and they are fully upgraded, it looks like. Very potent. BoGus would probably be fine again. He is impervious to any sort of direct assault for now. I mean, BoGus not able to clean up that 9 o'clock base. Neither player really performing to my expectations, I have to say. I have been a little overeager to declare this contest over, but I do not think either player has been playing a particularly high-level game of StarCraft. These Zealots going to be able to clean up these stasis lives. I mean, even discounting the fact that, you know, okay, maybe the strategy discussion is fairly moot, but certainly there is no mistake that Stats has been sloppy with his spellcasting at best for most of this game. EMP, although BoGus has been very good about his EMP, sniping the shuttle, which probably had Templar in it, and Stats has a puny army, it looks like, in comparison with BoGus. BoGus has tanks, Goliaths, so many tanks and Goliaths. Unbelievable. Stats is launching his final assault, perhaps, here in the middle of the map. He's lost 1 Arbiter. He has 1 Arbiter left. He has 1 Templar with 1 Storm. Not going to be able to dent the Terran spear here sufficiently. The Terran Iron Fist here just crashing down on the poor Protoss Dragoon. Nothing the Protoss can do. I guess stamping on the Protoss head with the Iron Boot would be the, or crushing the Protoss skull with the Iron Fist. Call it what you will. I am unfortunately not necessarily as eloquent as some other notable commentators here, or gory, I guess, depending on your perspective. Stats has managed to rebuild an army, and BoGus recalling those forces. Where are they recalled to the natural? Actually, that was a nice maneuver. That's probably confused BoGus a little. Let's see what BoGus decides to do. Does he decide to save his base? He does not. So Stats needs to somehow hold out against this army. This time, the storms are somewhat better. BoGus is a bit confused here. It looks like he sent some units to try to save his base. These mines going to drag into all sorts of mech forces in the front. And Stats has, again, bought himself survival with that maneuver. I have to say, that was actually a nice maneuver. That was the sort of play I was expecting from these players, and now BoGus seems confused. He hasn't quite been able to decide what he wants to do. Okay, it looks like he's brought all his forces down here to try to save this base. These are his only 2 mining bases, so I can understand why. But this has bought Stats the critical time he needs. Stats will be mining from at least 2 bases, it looks like. His base at the 1 o'clock is probably mostly empty. BoGus should be able to re-establish mining at 2 bases too. Stats has managed to re-macro up his army. Again, quite a back and forth game, I have to say. At this point, I am not quite able to see who is going to win. Stats has actually managed to upgrade his army fairly well. Stats coming in for the attack here at the front. Going to back off a bit. Probably needs his spellcasting units. BoGus still with a very potent army. BoGus not quite able to employ his forces as best as possible. That EMP missing. I'm pretty sure he did not want that to miss. Of course, no Terran player wants an EMP to miss. Should probably EMP that Archon too, although I guess the Archon dies so quickly to all those tank fire that hardly matters. Anyway, it looks like a storm over Vultures, which quickly move out of it. Probably not the wisest move for your storms. Again, Tempest, not Tempest here. Stats sometimes exhibiting good storms, but sometimes, not particularly. Stats might be trying for a recall here. I don't think he should recall here. He should probably sacrifice the Arbiter. Okay, that would have been a bad place to recall, I feel. So he does lose an Arbiter, but at least he doesn't lose an army to go along with that Arbiter. That is some sort of small consolation. Stats is still building Arbiters, it looks like. That is good. He needs to get enough spellcasting units here to try to make a difference. And this game has been going on for 30 minutes now. Back and forth action again. Both players looks like has again established equilibrium here in the middle of the map. And the map is actually half mined out, perhaps over half mined out. So players might opt to decide to spend the rest of the game fighting over what expansions there are left on the map there. Looks like Stats has taken the Natural again at the 9 o'clock base. So he should probably send some probes over to mine there soon. In fact, the battle may very well come down to that base at the 7 o'clock. Who can control that base? And I think BoGus will be in good position to defend there. Any sort of recall would likely get trapped and destroyed, and BoGus is trying to build a base there. And any sort of attack will have to force the Protoss units through a very narrow corridor, which would be bad for Protoss in general. So it looks like a standoff again in the middle of the map here. Neither side able to achieve any sort of decisive breakthrough, always getting repulsed at the last moment there. And this game may yet go on for some time, it appears. Neither player able to achieve any sort of knockout blow, even when victory seemed within their possible grasp. Both players actually playing fairly conservatively. Again, if BoGus had opted to push his mech army forward to try to destroy the gateways, that probably would have been the incorrect move at the point. If BoGus, though, had opted to use his mech army not to turn toward the Natural, but to try to destroy the 9 o'clock base, I think he would have won this game even if he lost both his mining bases. He could always salvage his SEVs. He has more command centers. As long as he takes out the Protoss income, he can always get income easier. That EMP gonna land on the Arbiter. As it stands, BoGus not quite with always the best use of his units. Often sending many units to do the job of a few, and that does not quite work out. You do not need to overcommit with your forces here. Both players content to sit in the middle of the map with your armies, while Stats is immediately patrolling a bit. He is scouting with his observers also to see what's going on. There are a lot of mines. This is quite a powerful defense again for BoGus. So I am not really sure what other player can really do at this point. I think Stats would be wise to mine up what resources he can, EMP missing most units there, and then once he feels confident that he can re-macro his army up fairly quickly, should probably start trying to trade armies and force BoGus' hand before BoGus can re-establish the base at the 7 o'clock. Because if BoGus can start mining from there, I don't know. I fear for Stats' chances in this game. BoGus does have his command center there up. He also does have science vessels roaming about, EMPing where they can, generally being a nuisance, I have to say. I don't think these EMPs are going to prove to be decisive, though. BoGus is very content to defend for now. I think in these late game situations, it is probably advantageous for the Terran to defend and try to start the opponent out. I mean, I don't blame him, even though this makes for fairly boring StarCraft. But defense matrix on that Science Vessel just to get off an EMP probably has enough energy to spare for all sorts of things. Stat's gonna recall here in the main. Oh, but he's recalled all those mines. That's actually quite bad. His units are heavily damaged here. He is gonna be able to cause some havoc here. Fortunately, in the main base, I don't think BoGus is gonna mind the loss of any tech. BoGus is sending some units back to deal with this. He's also brought Science Vessels back. This recall by Stats, I don't think will be too successful. This is what I mean. BoGus sending the appropriate amount of units, it looks like, to deal with this. Vulture is very good against Archons and Zealots, it looks like. And Stats going to come in with a Shuttle to reinforce this drop. It looks like, I do not know what is in the Shuttle. Perhaps Templar, or perhaps, yes, it looks like there are some Templar here. Going to storm over most of his own units there. That was a better storm there, the second storm. Again, this time BoGus, these are actually really impressive storms. Those Templar are like almost full energy. Those storms doing a lot of damage, I have to say. So that actually was a reasonably nice maneuver. Again, BoGus did not appear to overcommit his forces to do that. He has sent a lot of his screening forces to do that. The Stats has opted to take this opportunity when there are no Vultures or Goliaths here to try to attack across this bridge. There are no units to stop him. This is actually working out quite well for Stats. He has gone for the natural there, it looks like, at the 6:30 o'clock base. EMP all over those Arbiters. Those Arbiters this time trying to stasis what units they can. This is fine, but I'm not sure whether this is the best maneuver. I think Stats is going to end up losing all his forces here. He is sniping what science vessels he can, but the bulk of the army of BoGus is still intact at this point. Stats he can't afford the loss of these Arbiters at this point, so this is looking bad. Those Dragoons getting taken out by the mines there, it looks like. And again, I don't think BoGus is going to mind this too much. Stats has no army left on the field. He hasn't really done too much damage. He probably would have been better off attacking once he realized all those screening forces were out of place, just attacking into the teeth of the tank line. That probably would have worked better, because as it stands, I think Stats has sacrificed his entire army for almost no gain here, and I think he is in desperate straits. He's down to 1 mining base, whereas BoGus will be on 3. He will be able to get the natural up again at the 6:30. Stats has grouped up what units he has left, it looks like, including probes for a desperate last charge, which will do nothing in the face of this Terran mechanical terror, I have to say. And that girl is looking quite concerned, probably a KT fan, Flash fan as it were, quite concerned here. Flash's teammate not delivering in this game, which has actually dragged on to be quite long, and not the most exciting, I have to say. BoGus has decided he's had enough of this, and he's going to push out. Stats is stasising what units he can at the front, sort of forming a protective barrier there for BoGus. That's nice. That girl also looking a bit concerned. Maybe that's an STX fan. That's probably an STX fan. I should probably say something nice about the other side here. And BoGus has rebuilt his screening forces, it looks like. He's going to be fine. Stats not going to be able to stop this push, I feel. Or if he stops it, he's just not going to be able to re-macro up the forces. I mean, Stats, look at all the times that BoGus has units out of position. If Stats attacked into the tanks without defenses, he would do so well. But now, screening forces, and Stats persisting with his assaults over this bridge for whatever reason. I do not know why he has this fixation with the bridge. Going to lose his shuttle here again. During all this time, by the way, he never figured that speed shuttles could actually be really useful if you're carrying high-value cargo. Small investment to pay. Massive attack here coming in by Stats. Terrible attack, I have to say. One side of the map is covered with that. A good storm there, but one side of the map covered with that space artifact, and he's going to lose all his units for nothing. This is the most terrible attack, I have to say, by a Protoss player in recent memory. Oh, Stats. I mean, I know he was going to lose the game almost certainly there, but that did not help. If he actually hoped to come back, which judging by the fact that he has not GG'd, he was hoping to come back, that was absolutely the wrong place to attack at the wrong time. That is the lesson you should learn. Never attack a Terran entrenched siege up tank army when they're protected on the flanks like that. And when Terran is defending in depth with screening forces in the front. I don't know. GG, of course, coming from Stats. BoGus has won. Good for him. He does deserve this victory. I felt, even though he hasn't played a perfect game, he's played significantly better than Stats. Good EMPs all around. Going on to the next game.